Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. Should go without saying, but I probably need to say it. Just looking at our last guest. Comments made by guests are not indicative of my opinion and anything else. Sometimes I hear things there and go, whoa, didn't know that. I wouldn't have said that, but there you go. So there's that. One of the things that's kind of top of mind for a lot of us right now is what's going on in the U.S. Congress. The House of Representatives just passed 2 gun control laws, bills. They're not laws. They have to go to the Senate. They have to be signed. This is the personification of elections have consequences. And I can get into the whole who did what and who didn't do what at some point, but that's really doesn't help us at the moment. What we have to do is focus on what's going on, what's the battle. I mean, we can take the long view, but sometimes you got to fight the people who are coming over the walls, and that's what's going on. That's where we are right now, helping us to understand what just happened and explain these bills a bit. Mark Oliva from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, NSSF.org. Hey, Mark, how are you, sir?
Doing very well, Tom. Thanks for having me today.
You bet. So explain what just happened in the House of Representatives, if you could.
Yeah, so the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, pushed through 2 gun control bills that were pushed through the last Congress, but this time she did it without any debate, any committee markup. It went straight to the floor and passed on nearly a party line vote. There were a couple of Republicans who sided with it, but it was a very narrow margin. And now it's gone over to the Senate, where we're watching Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has vowed to at least bring this up for a procedural vote. But we still believe he probably does not have the support that he would need to overcome a filibuster, much less pass this in the Senate.
So he would have to have 60 votes to overcome the filibuster, right?
He would. 60 votes to overcome the filibuster. And you've also got some pretty still centrist Democrats who I think would have a very tough time trying to explain a yay vote to their voters back in the States. And looking particularly at Senator Manchin in West Virginia, who has vowed that he would not give up the filibuster. He was going to defend it. And we also know that he's been supportive of expanded background checks in the past, but these bills don't do just expanded background checks, Tom.
What do they do?
H.R. 8 creates a national firearms registry. That means you, me, every one of your listeners will be put on a government watch list simply for exercising your Second Amendment right, which begins with purchasing a firearm.
And, yeah, man, for years we've heard the old deal of, well, why would you object to registering your gun? You register your car. Well, because nobody's out there claiming we want to take away all your cars. But this same group that say we want to register your guns is the same group that often and publicly says we absolutely want to confiscate all of your guns. We don't think anybody ought to own a gun. And we know historically, and I know it drives people crazy because they say, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Historically, every single time there has been widespread confiscation of firearms, it has 100% of the time been preceded by registration because it's impossible to do it otherwise. You have to have a list to know where to go to pick them up. And the way you prevent the confiscation, at least in my viewpoint, is you don't allow registration. And so you stop it now so you don't have to fight it then.
You're exactly right. Gun registries are always going to be the first step to a confiscation. And we look simply at what President Biden's rhetoric was during the campaign. He sat down with Anderson Cooper of CNN, and when asked would he confiscate lawfully owned semi-automatic rifles, and again, we're talking over 20 million of these are in circulation today, his answer was, bingo, yes, I will. So we know he wants to do it. We know he would love to set about going and do it, and we're watching this starting a slow-roll train wreck happen in Canada right now because they're doing the same thing, but they don't have Second Amendment protections for a natural, God-given right for you to keep and bear your arms.
So H.R. 8 is what they call the universal background check. If I sell a gun to a private individual, basically what it does is it criminalizes private sales. You go to jail for making a private sale that you didn't get the FBI's background check approval on.
It does, Tom, and there's a lot of devils in the details on this, but you're right. It would make it a criminal act for you to sell a handgun to your neighbor that you've known for 10 or 15 years, knowing that that person is a law-abiding citizen. You've known them, you've had them in your home, You know that they may already own firearms, but if you transfer a firearm to them without FBI background check, according to this bill, you would be in violation of the law and would be subject to a federal crime.
And I know people are saying, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal comes in the form of the next bill, H.R. 1446, right?
H.R. 1446, the so-called Charleston loophole bill.
Right.
Which, again, what we're looking at on this, neither one of these bills actually solve any issue of reducing crime. What H.R. 1446 would do would be to extend out the period in which the FBI could hold back a background check while they need to look back at your information further. And the author of that bill, Representative Clyburn, has gone back to say, well, this is what happened in the tragedy at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston. Well, that wasn't in fact at all what happened. What happened?
That's not even true.
Local law enforcement never shared the disqualifying criminal background check information with the FBI. They never loaded that up to the FBI. So instead of fixing the background check system and making it easier for local law enforcement to share those criminal records, they want to make it so that if you don't immediately get a proceed, you go into delay status. After 10 days, you have to prove to the government your innocence to be able to get that gun. That turns everything on its head. That's un-American.
And right now, after 3 days, a gun store can go ahead and sell that gun or transfer that gun to the individual. Under the new provision, under 1446, they would not be able to do that. And in the point of fact, there is no maximum amount of time it can take, right?
No, it could go on indefinitely. Again, it was after a 10-day period. If they still couldn't figure it out, it would go into another 10 business day period. And at the end of that 10 business day period, it would default out. Your background check is no good after 30 days. You have to start the process all over again.
Okay, so let me take...
You could be into a cycle where it never gets fixed.
Let me put these two together. So now we have a bill that would say all sales of guns, private sales of guns, have to go through the FBI background check. And at the same time, they're saying, and we could actually delay those forever. And no one ever gets an FBI background check approval, and you can't transfer a gun without that. You put the two of those together, and it is a blueprint formula for how we could simply stop all transfers of guns.
It essentially makes purchasing a firearm no longer a right. It makes it a privilege that is meted out by the government at their will.
Exactly right. So what do we do about this, Mark? What can individuals do?
Yeah, you've got to get involved now. You've got to start reaching out to your senators, start telling them, most importantly, how much you object to this and how you're going to hold them accountable for that bill. And again, we believe that the senators understand this, but they certainly need to hear from their constituents. Reach out to your senators and let them know absolutely no way on H.R. 8 or H.R. 1446 not going to be tolerated in the United States of America.
Is the NSSF letting them know that you're scoring this vote?
We have. We let them know in the House we're going to score it. The senators know we're going to score it, and we're keeping them accountable for those actions, for those votes.
There you go. Mark, thank you so much. I'm going to direct people to the website, nssf.org. It's a great organization. If you are a gun store, if you're involved in the firearms industry at all, you need to be a member. And if you're just a regular gun owner, you need to be paying attention to all the great programs that NSSF has. Mark, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Be well.